What is going on, guys? My name is Taylor Stuber, and I'm here to break down this 7-game NBA slate on Draftkings and PrizePicks.com. If you guys are new here, welcome. If you guys are a returning viewer, welcome back. We're coming off a slate where I feel very confident that we got everything correct on, but unfortunately, Anthony Davis exited the game early, very early, with a tummy ache. Shout out Anthony Davis for that, but I digress. We're here to right the ship. I'm feeling really good about it. Sunday NBA slates are probably my favorite slates to play personally, just because everybody is focusing on NFL and people are just throwing away money in NBA after they're losing to the masses in NFL. We have some news to wait on, and we will be going over that in my daily live stream an hour before lock. Now, this slate does lock at 5 p.m. Central Time, an hour earlier than normal. So make sure to join my live stream at 4 p.m. Central Time. We're going to go over all the news as well as answering some questions. But if you guys want to know exactly what I'm playing on FanDuel, DraftKings, and PrizePicks.com, make sure to join my Patreon. That is linked down below in the description, as well as the pinned comment. $25 for the month of November. I think it's a pretty damn good deal. But let's just jump right into this slate. By the way, guys, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, would really appreciate it. We'll start off with the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Washington Wizards, a 219 over-under. The Bucks are currently 1-point favorites. The Bucks are going to be without Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, Dante DiVincenzo. Grayson Allen is questionable. Now, if Grayson Allen does end up missing, Pat Connaughton would become a very good play, would soak up a lot of those minutes and end up playing 30-plus minutes, I would assume. Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the best, if not the best, spend-up options. There's really two spend-up options I'm really keen on playing today, Giannis being one of them. There should be enough value to get up to him. Very good pace-up spot against the Washington Wizards. And the unfortunate thing about the Bucks and the Wizards, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, is that they're always involved in blowouts. Now, it's pretty crazy because they were winning by like 21 points in the first quarter, and then they ended up losing by 15 points to the Knicks. So another blowout for them. Pretty much all of their games end up being a blowout, usually in their favor, but this game is projected to be close, so I'm going to be playing Giannis Antetokounmpo more times than not today. And the Drew Holiday at $6,400. He returned last game, ended up playing 20 minutes. Probably would have saw around 24 minutes if the game did not blow out. But he's had a couple days of rest now. So I think Drew Holiday could play upwards of like 30 minutes in this game. And at $6,400, he's a very good play. Averaged 1.3 fantasy points per minute since the beginning of last year with no Chris Middleton on the court. So we're going to have to wait and see on the minutes restriction. He did come off the bench for George Hill last time. So if he is in the starting lineup, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that he's going to play around 30 minutes. So we're really going to have to wait for that starting lineup. But fortunately, that is the first game of the slate, so we will have notice ahead of time. Also, if Grayson Allen is ruled out, Bobby Portis should receive a couple extra minutes as well. I think Bobby Portis is a good play regardless at $4,600. His minutes crept up to 24 last game. And without Brook Lopez on the court, if he's playing around 24-26 minutes, which I think he can get up to again, I think he's a very good play at $4,600. Move over to the Washington Wizards. They are going to be without Thomas Bryant, Rui Hachimura, Davis Bertans, and Cassius Winston. Daniel Gafford ended up playing 23 minutes last game, so he has slowly been getting his minutes elevated since coming back from injury, because he's feeling fine. It's just conditioning wise hasn't really been there. We know that him and Montrezl Harrell are going to split all 48 of those center minutes. So if we're going to get Daniel Gafford playing mid-20s minutes, $4,400 is way too cheap for him. We were paying like mid-5Ks for him earlier this year before he got injured, when he was in the same exact role. So we are getting a discount on Daniel Gafford. I also think Bradley Beal is probably a bit too cheap at $9,200, just like the Bucks, except for the opposite reason. He's dealing with a lot of blowouts, but that's because his team is getting blown out. So if this game is close, I think Bradley Beal at $9,200, he'll get his full allotment of minutes. I think he's a very good spin-up option on the slate. Move over to the Indiana Pacers versus the Sacramento Kings at 226 over under. The Kings are currently 1.5 point favorites. The Pacers are going to be without TJ Warren, Isaiah Jackson, and then Malcolm Brogdon and Jeremy Lamb are both questionable. Both those guys ended up missing last game. If Brogdon is to miss with this illness for a second straight game, which I think there is a good likelihood that he does, But this game, again, starts at 5 p.m. Central Time, so we will know ahead of lock. That would make Karis LeVert and TJ McConnell near must plays for me. And actually over here on Prize Picks, Karis LeVert, I like his over 30 fantasy points, even if Malcolm Brogdon plays. If Malcolm Brogdon sits, over 30 fantasy points seems kind of like a shoe-in for him. He ended up scoring 28 fantasy points last game, which is actually 29 on Prize Picks. So he fell a shot or a point behind last time in terms of Prize Picks points. But that was with him shooting 6 for 21. So the volume is going to continue to be there. Obviously, he's not on a minutes limit. He played 34 minutes. And it gets an amazing matchup against the Sacramento Kings. But we're going to have to wait on that news. Now, on the opposite side, we get the Kings. They have no injuries. De'Aaron Fox, I mean, his true shooting percentage is way down to start the year, but the volume has been there. So at $8,700, I'm going to keep firing at him. And then I love all these Kings guys because the minutes are so secure. Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, Buddy Hield, even Davion Mitchell coming off the bench, playing more minutes than Mo Harkless, who's grabbing these starts. But yeah, I mean, I love these guys, especially Rashawn Holmes, because with the how big the Indiana Pacers are with Miles Turner, Sabonis in the front court, Holmes is going to have to play big minutes. So if you guys want to tail me, I'm taking the over Karis LeVert 30 fantasy points in the over Rashawn Holmes fantasy points. If you guys want to add another, I feel very confident in the over in Harrison Barnes at 30.5 fantasy points. So there's a 3-pick you could choose. I already placed these bets and posted them on the Patreon. Now these numbers will move throughout the day, so the sooner you get it in, the better. If you guys want to tail me, you can get a 100% match bonus on your deposit if you use code Taylor, TAYLOR. That also helps support the stream and helps me continue to do this for you guys. But yeah, I love these three guys. I would rank them probably Holmes, LeVert, then Barnes. But yeah, I mean, you can't play Rashawn and Barnes just together, a 2-pick. You have to mix it up with the teams. But I like playing all three of these guys together. But again, guys, I think targeting these teams or these players with questionable tags on the teams is probably the route you should end up going on Prize Picks. Move over to the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the New York Knicks, a 207 over/under. The Knicks are currently 8-point favorites. The Cavaliers are going to be without Kevin Love, Larry Markkinen, Isaac Okoro. Lamar Stevens was added to the rotation last game, so they got bumped up from an 8-man rotation to a 9-man rotation. But the starting lineup outside of Dean Wade is going to play massive minutes, as well as Ricky Rubio. Rubio's minutes got cut back a bit last game because he was dealing with foul trouble. But the couple games before that, when they were just running that 8-man rotation and he wasn't dealing with foul trouble, he was playing 31 plus minutes. Now he's down to $5,000. Some people played him last time, and so I think the ownership is going to be a bit lower because he ended up somewhat busting because of the foul trouble. He still had a decent game, 22 fantasy points in 22 minutes. He's well over a fantasy point per minute player. Good matchup against the Knicks. This Knicks defense isn't nearly as good as they were last year. But man, I'm really all over Jared Allen, Garland, Sexton, Ricky Rubio. I love these Cleveland Cavaliers guys just because of how tight that rotation is and how many minutes they should be playing. We get the New York Knicks, and I got this news just before I started recording this video, but Kemba Walker is out today due to rest. Lucas Samanic is questionable. So without Kemba Walker, I mean, Derrick Rose just becomes a smash play. We know that the rotations that they've been running a hot hand approach to the point guard position. Whoever's playing better is going to get the lion's share of those 48 point guard minutes. They will never play next to each other. But now we're without Kemba Walker, so Derrick Rose is a shoe-in for 30 plus minutes in a great matchup against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Only $4,800. Going to be the chalkiest play on the slate, but this is good chalk. I think you should eat it. Love Derrick Rose here. And then Mitchell Robinson at $4,400. He should play extended minutes today. I would be pretty surprised if he didn't play around 30 minutes in this game, given the size of the Cleveland Cavaliers with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen in the front court. Move over to the Utah Jazz versus the Orlando Magic at 209.5 over/under. The Jazz are currently 12.5 point favorites. I think there is a good chance that we see Donovan Mitchell and or Mike Conley rest in this game. Is the second leg of a back-to-back against the Orlando Magic. This game starts at lock, so if anybody is to be rested, we will likely know ahead of time. or we definitely will. So as long as everybody is healthy and playing, I'm not considering anybody. If one of Mitchell or Conley end up resting, Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson become very, very good plays on this slate. On the Orlando Magic side, they are going to be without Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Michael Carter-Williams, Etuan Moore. Cole Anthony is questionable. If Cole Anthony were to miss this game, Jalen Suggs would be locked in to play like 30 plus minutes in this game. And he already leads his team with a 26.6% usage rating. You know, he's pretty good on a per minute basis. The only problem is his minutes. And so if Cole Anthony is out, this really opens up a big opportunity for Jalen Suggs at $4,700. Would be a very, very good tournament option today, but definitely gonna have to wait on that news. If Cole Anthony is healthy, I'm not really considering anybody on this team. I suppose Wendell Carter Jr., you know, he's a pretty comparable play to me for personally with Mo Bamba, but he is $700 cheaper and also has forward eligibility, so a bit of a better play than Mo Bamba himself. Move over to the San Antonio Spurs versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, 213.5 over under. The Spurs are currently 4-point favorites. They're going to be without Jakob Poeltl and Zach Collins. Drew Eubanks has been drawing these starts in place of Poeltl, but it's been Thaddeus Young playing the majority of the minutes. So I'm expecting Thad Young to play mid-20s minutes and Drew Eubanks to play like mid-teens. But there is a good chance in this game that we see, as long as the game is competitive, that this game ends up going small because the Oklahoma City Thunder are a very undersized team. And we saw 2 games ago, the first game that Jakob Poeltl was out, they closed the last 6.5 minutes with Keldon Johnson at the 5. He has a team-high 24.8% usage rating. So I think his minutes are very secure, and there's upside in those minutes if they do end up closing with him at the 5. Very good matchup against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I like him a ton at $5,500. Probably my favorite Spur tonight. Also, don't mind Derek White given his price. DeJounte Murray at $9,100. It's just like weird to see him at this price tag. I think he deserves it. He showed the upside at this price tag. It's just a bit tougher for me to get there with him. And then we move over to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Gabriel Deck is questionable, but they are pretty healthy for the most part. The Thunder will push Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's minutes in competitive games. He's played 40, 39, and 38 minutes in the last 3 games that have been competitive. This game is only a 2.5 point spread, or a 4-point spread. So I think this game is competitive. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, assuming this game stays close, is a very good play at $8,600. Josh Giddey at $6,300, I think is still probably too cheap. His facilitating role, his role in general, it just continues to grow on this Thunder team. And as he gets more games under his belt, the better he is likely to get. So I like Josh Giddey quite a bit as well. And then Derek Favors at $3,600. You know, he'll probably play mid-20s minutes. I've compared him somewhat to the Al Horford situation last year, where he's going to be an older guy that's going to be very good on a per minutes basis, going to play around mid-20s minutes, but we're getting him at $3,600, one of the better sub 4K values, but I don't think you need to go there. But if you need to reach for a sub 4K guy, Derek Favors is a pretty solid option there. Move over to the Houston Rockets versus the Golden State Warriors. 220 over under. The Warriors are currently 12-point favorites. The Rockets are going to be without John Wall and Daniel House. The minutes amongst the starters like Christian Wood, Porter Jr., Jalen Green, Jae'Sean Tate, pretty much everybody except Daniel Tice, their minutes are very, very secure on this team. You know, there's some pretty serious blowout risk in this game. If you guys are playing any of the Rockets, I would probably make sure to bring it back with one of the Warriors guys to make sure that the game stays close, and then everybody gets their full allotment of minutes. Point per dollar wise, I'm probably considering Kevin Porter Jr. and Jae'Sean Tate the most on this team. Kevin Porter Jr., I mean, he's played pretty poorly so far this year, but the opportunities are there for sure. They love him facilitating. They want the ball in his hands. They want him to run the point. So I love Kevin Porter Jr. if this game stays close, but that is in serious risk. And then we move on to the Warriors. They are going to be without Klay Thompson, James Wiseman, Andre Iguodala. Jordan Poole has a much larger likelihood of closing out this game, because a lot of the times he's not even in the closing rotation or the closing lineup because of Andre Iguodala, but Iguodala is now out. So we get Jordan Poole at $5,800, second on the team in usage. I like him a good bit. I like Andrew Wiggins a good bit. A lot of their games have been blowing out. This could be another blowout, but they're all pretty good plays. If you guys do play some of these Warriors guys, you want to bring it back with a Houston Rocket just to assure that the game does stay close down to the wire and everybody gets their full allotment of minutes. Move over to the last game of the slate. The Charlotte Hornets versus the Los Angeles Clippers at 224.5 over under. The Clippers are currently 5.5 point favorites. PJ Washington is going to be out in this game again. Mason Plumlee is questionable. So we saw Mason Plumlee last game. His minutes are going to be very secure with no PJ Washington, but he dealt with very, very severe foul trouble last game, which cut his minutes down. If he is healthy, he's a very good play at $5,300. If he is out, then they are really thin in the front court. Nick Richards would likely get the start. He's $3,400. He would become probably the best point per dollar value play on the slate if Plumlee were to be ruled out. But this game is the last game of the slate, so we might be waiting around for news on that. Terry Rozier probably a bit too cheap at $6,300. Also, if Plumlee ends up getting ruled out, I could definitely see this game going small because the Clippers will go small whenever they possibly can, and so we could see Miles Bridges at the 5 and see Cody Martin enter the closing lineup and getting extended minutes. On the Los Angeles Clippers side, probably my favorite point per dollar stud on the slate pay up option is going to be Paul George. You know, I keep playing him and he keeps being severely underowned. I don't understand it. Now he gets a massive pace up spot against a poor Charlotte Hornets defense, and his price has been coming down to $10,400. So I love Paul George. I'm probably just locking him in my lineups right now. Also don't mind Reggie Jackson. I also think that since they were playing Minnesota the last couple of games, that's why Zubac's minutes have been on the rise. I think in this matchup, they probably go back to playing small. And so Zubac's minutes going to get cut down a bit. And then Batum, Terrence Mann, Eric Bledsoe, those minutes become much, much more secure. And they're all pretty good plays in that mid 4K range. But really focusing it in on Paul George on the Clippers side. But yeah, guys, if you guys want to tail me over here on Prize Picks, you know, I think there are a lot of sneaky plays on this slate that I'll talk about a bit more extensively in the live stream later. But again, guys, signing up and depositing using code Taylor TAYLOR is the best way of supporting me here. I actually don't mind the under on Ivica Zubac just because of what I just mentioned, and the over on Reggie Jackson. There's a couple of 5 picks I could end up going over. I'm going to have to tighten that core, and then I'll send it out in the Patreon. But again, guys, the over, Karis LeVert, 30 fantasy points, Rashawn Holmes, 29 fantasy points, and Harrison Barnes, 30.5 fantasy points is where I'm really leaning. Also, this Christian Wood projection is entirely too low, but I think it's same with the Steph Curry thing. I think that they're building in the blowout risk of it because I think people have been kind of catching on that taking the unders on some of these players is very, very enticing. I mean, some of these numbers just seem really off to me, to be honest. If Grayson Allen is ruled out, Pat Connaughton becomes a pretty solid over at 18.5 points. But man, the Cleveland Cavaliers, their minutes are very, very secure, assuming this game does stay close. I think it's currently an 8-point spread, but they're going to be playing like mid to high 30s minutes until Markkanen, Love, Isaac Okoro return. So I don't mind those guys at all. But again, I think that the in-game stuff where you're playing second half and fourth quarter plays, that is probably the best way to get action over on Prize Picks. They usually go live shortly after the games end up going live. But it's like if you look at NFL right here, they have second half stuff. I really like to target that. And then with the NBA first half stuff, I've been kind of experimenting with this. If you really like a player in a game, but you are fearing the blowout risk, I would just go ahead and play their first half fantasy score so that you don't have to worry about the blowout risk. Yeah, I think that's probably the safer option to go with, because actually that makes a lot of sense, because if Christian Wood, his projection is 34, like that's a low projection for him. But I think that's built in the blowout risk, and then they don't really adjust it during the half, so you're getting 17 fantasy points. But you don't have blowout risk in the first half. So if you like Christian Wood, I would rather take the 17 fantasy points in the first half rather than 34 across the whole game. So because you don't have to worry about the blowout risk. Same with Steph Curry as well. So, you know, I'm just now noticing this first half stuff. So kind of just talking out or thinking out loud with this, but I think that's definitely a route you could possibly start taking advantage of over on Prize Picks. But yeah, I appreciate you guys watching this video. Make sure to join that live stream later on today, an hour before lock. Remember, the slate locks at 5 p.m. Central Time, so an hour earlier than normal, and I will be going live an hour before that. Hopefully, we have a lot more news to go over. I'm sure we will by that time, but I appreciate you guys being here. Best of luck tonight, and until next time, peace.